Hello, Charles Knapp. I'm back again with another video, and it's been a while, and it actually took me a while to figure out what this fairy was all about in Byron Priess's book, The Secret, the back of the book. And if you watched my videos, any of the videos, you will see and come to realize, hopefully, eventually, these little cartoons are in there to localize the casks. Localize, tell you exactly where the cask is buried. And so I'm going to try to keep this short. I think it's going to be a little over 30 minutes, but we'll try to keep it short. And I apologize for the length, but here's the wording, here's the puzzle back of the book that we'll be looking at today. And so, looking at the small cartoon, we ask, why would anybody draw this, and why is it drawn like this? And you'll see some features here. What is this all about? I guess that's supposed to be a cigar. And you notice there's no shadow down here. We'll cover that in a little bit. The larger cartoon, why all of this? Why the big sack of money, the giant sack? One coin is different than the other coins. Why is he eating that $10 bill, and why is the background all black? These are questions we need to ask to figure this out. And by the way, if you're not near the dig spot or dig site, none of this will make sense. The back will be a bunch of gibberish, won't make any sense at all to you. But it is definitely San Francisco, and we'll see more. Also, San Francisco and New York are linked together. They share clues, and we've shown that in some of the other videos, and it's pretty common. They're bookends. They have arches and arcs that are the same, and you can go on and on, but that's not the point of this video. But to look at the painting by John Jude Palancar, you see this shadow does not line up with that shadow. This upper part is light and this part is dark, and it's almost black down here, and very bottom corner down here, way down in this corner, can't see it on here, but if you zoom in, there's a cross, like something's buried there, something died there maybe. And so we're going to talk a little bit about all of these things and how it's related to the back of the book. Cartoons that the cartoon we're looking at today, the High Interest Wraith. And I had to look it up because I had no clue what a wraith is. I don't know why I'm getting a dark spot there, but I am. Something is shadowing. Oh, excuse me, adjustment. There we go. There you go. That's what happens with, you got an amateur here trying to get this thing going and set up. Any event, look at this subtitle right here, usurious. We'll look at that word first, and some people already know this. It's a usurious price or rate of interest is one that is unfairly high. In other words, you're getting ripped off, or you're ripping somebody else off. It's costing a lot of money. It's expensive, costly, pricely. These are synonyms of that word. So keep that in mind as we read through. Typographical terrors means that there's been a typo change, typographical change. That's Byron's way of telling you he's changed the spelling of some of the words. And it's kind of clear which puzzles and which words as you work through these puzzles. And you can see for the giant bounty, which again, Byron, I've said this before, Byron uses culture at the time. There was, bounty was the bigger picker-upper, and there was a commercial using bounty rolls of what do you call it? Paper towels, paper towels. So we have our giant, and there's two giants that are prominent, New York and San Francisco giants. And so many of these cartoons, you look for the giant, and if there's a giant, there's a good chance it's New York or San Francisco. You got the guy in New York here. He's pointing up here, and you see an ace and a comma. The ace is San Francisco, and I've talked about that before. Here's our terror. She represents the typographical terror. And in San Francisco, it's a giant step to the place. Well, if you remove PL, you get ace. A giant step to the ace, the cask is kept. And so here's the ace, and that's why he's pointing to it. And it's New York right down here, because it is both New York and San Francisco puzzles combined into some of the art. And we're going to move along and talk about this word. And the typographical change is from an I, which is the Latin, to a U in Byron's spelling here. Now, this word here is interesting because it has a couple of meanings. Of course, the Latin one is, there's the I, horribilis. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But horrible, terrible, dreadful, fearful. And of course, here's the other meaning. It's inserted into, it might mean the same thing, that kind of bear, a grizzly bear. Now, that's important or interesting because we have a cartoon, and lo and behold, there, right there, there's this is our grizzly bear. And you don't normally draw a grizzly bear that with sharp corners on its back, or sharp-cornered head, or one ear that's different than another, an eye that's different than another. Well, these sharp corners are telling us, and you'll see why, that's San Francisco. And you see the center dot right in there. So there's meaning to the artwork. Here's all black background. Where did we just see that? Oh, the one we're talking about, High Interest Wraith. There's a black background to the large cartoon. And we have our numbers 3 and 5 and 4 for 3, 4, 5 triangles, which are used to localize in both New York and San Francisco in the puzzles. It's an alternate way, once you're at the location, of exactly where the cask is, identifying. So wraith, we have to look at that word as well as these two. Wraith, I had no clue, but that's a ghost. Well, not just any ghost. Usually, it's a ghost or specter, the apparition of a dead person, or here a wraith light gleaming o'er him, bright and ghastly as a star. And this shows that word's been used a long time, since way back in the 1500s, and it just means dead person, a ghost, somebody that's died, shadowy likeness of an absent person. So we're talking about dark and dead and shadowy. And you look at wraith, there's an alternate usage, Rolls-Royce, silver wraith. It's part of this Rolls-Royce collection of cars. And the other one that's very similar is the shadow. So you can see where these words are going, where they're leading us to that background of darkness, shadowy. But he doesn't look like a ghost. Now, why go to all this trouble of coming up with this? There's meaning to this. Well, again, if you look, and it's also the short guy, this doesn't look like a ghost to me. Looks like some kind of a creature who's been eating too much, smoking a cigar. So you read through the words here, and that starts telling us what's going on. If you read through all these words here, it tells you about money that goes away, things that are expensive, and it boils it all down right in here in 1929, and we know what happened then. The stock market crashed. And so that's probably why it's black, and you'll see why in a second. But you see the wraith is consuming the money. It's disappearing. It disappeared in 1929 pretty fast and in a big way. And you can also see our threes, 3 fingers, 3 teeth, 3 over here. The wraith is consuming money, and that's what the words are telling us here. The money's going away. It goes away big time, rapidly in 1929. And if you look closely here, this wraith is a shapeshifter. We've talked about shapeshifters before, and that's the West Ghost and others. It's something that changes shape. Water, oil, shadows, they change shape, right? And we also just talked about the bear, the grizzly bear. And that's probably maybe why this line is stuck in there. The investors crashed, and they had problems, some of them jumping from up high from castles. Why did he use the word castle and not buildings? And we'll see that in a second. But they're up high in the castles. The West Ghost, as I mentioned, is a shapeshifter. You read through this. What shifts shape? Water, oil, sweat, steam, smog, smoke, vapor, invisibility. This is talking about shadows, and it's West Ghost, San Francisco. That's why we have the linkage here to shapeshifter, San Francisco. And here you see more of the same in the art. You can see the West Ghost is actually changing shape right in front of everybody there. West Ghost, if you look close at the art, the smaller drawing, we have the block down here, which happens to be representing concrete, and a triangle, and it's showing you your triangle is measured from the corner. So it's starting to make sense here. Okay, the part about the castle is in the air. What do castles have that we're well aware of, and we've talked about for San Francisco? They have loopholes. High in castles, where the arrows were shot out of through the windows, and they were very narrow. So why is this in here? Why are we talking about loopholes? Well, we've talked about loopholes before in the art. Byron knew what a loophole was, and he knew the different meanings. We know about that. The legal meaning of a loophole, and it's mentioned actually under tax burden, carrying the big bag on your back. There it is, loophole. And there's the definition. Here's a loophole. This is why that loopholes are emphasized, because our structure that nearby, Coit Tower, has these loopholes in them. They're windows. Now, don't just stop there. Let's do actual loopholes in the art. This is the New York. This is, of course, the San Francisco. You see the loopholes and the vines looping around. Coit Tower, you come up and there's a loophole. Here's the Fairmont clue. Big to do about the Fairmont clue. And it's not where it is located not far from Coit Tower, actually, and not far from Chinatown. But the important thing is the loopholes right there. And you see this on the Job Goblin, which we've identified as San Francisco. Loophole. And here's a 5, here's a 3. And here's there's a heart right here on this leg. And the heart is for I Love New York. You can say all of this is coincidence. Oh, you're looking too close. That's just the art. Is it? Yeah, maybe there's some coincidental stuff on here that just happens to be, but there's an awful lot of coincidences going on in this art. You can just blow it off because you don't want to look at it or whatever your deal is. You go to Coit Tower, we have narrow windows, loopholes. That's why that's on there. Getting back to our, these things are connected, but getting back to the large cartoon, And our ghost, which looks like a, I don't know, a fat reptilian with some wings, and he's eating money. And some people say, well, the back of the book doesn't have anything to do with the puzzles. Well, this is just somebody's something they dreamed up that thought would be funny. I don't know. I don't think so. So the Wraith is getting fat. He's consuming money. The black is for the stock market crash. And you can see that right here. We have a Black Thursday, a Black Tuesday, Black Monday. The stock market crash. Lots of black. I like this depiction. There's also, in the writing of the High Interest Wraith, talks about a telephone. A smile as broad as a Laffer curve. And what's that all about? Well, we talked about Tinkerbells in another video. I've talked about in your ear. There are clues in the ear, and we'll see a little bit here coming up. But, you know, it's not just art. These things are linked together. Byron is pointing us where to look for clues. And let's move on. So the telephone, here we go, Tinkerbells. The Tinker's Bell system has your number. What does that mean? What do you mean got our number? Well, it's probably the number we're looking for. Here's 4. Here's 3. You can see in the art, there's a 3. There's a heart for New York. And if you're looking closely here, certain of these are lit up and certain are not. And the phone is pushed back, telling you she's got your number. There's your number. There's your number right there. It's a 3 from the corner. It's a triangle. And one length is actually 3 feet. Byron uses that. But you can see where these clues start adding up. Are some of them coincidental? Oh yeah, maybe, probably, who knows. But when they add up to keep giving you the same thing over and over again, here's in your ear, and a giant. Giant for New York and San Francisco. And there's also a few other clues in the large art on corporate giants. In your ear. And why would an artist go to the trouble of drawing all of this? Just for fun? My ear doesn't look like that. Does your ear look like that? Well, you go from ace to ace, a giant step. It's right here is being depicted, there's a depiction of going from ace to ace. And you also have an arc right here, and he describes it as welding lines. That is our concrete. Right along there is our concrete. There's our arc. Right over there is our drinking fountain, right there. So this is telling you exactly where you need to go for the cask. Similarly, this guy is showing you some things to localize as well. A triangle from the corner, and it's a 3-4-5 triangle. Also, here's our arc right here. There's only one coin that has a look like that. Why is that? To draw attention to that coin, that one coin. We've talked about 3-4-5 for puzzles number 1 and number 12. New York, San Francisco, they're part of the 3-4-5 club. This is Teen Angels, and angels being a wordplay for angles. Pool and billiards is about angles. So we have our triangles down here. You can see there's one there, there's one there, there's one over there, and here's our arc. It's a curve, like a Laffer curve. It's upside down Laffer curve, maybe. And then go to the main art. If you don't like any of that art, what do we have? We have our concrete square that our fountain is resting on. There's our ace, taking a step to the other ace, from ace to ace, and a triangle measured from the corner of the concrete. He tells you right there. We're being told what's going on there. We just need to be paying attention. Here's our shadow. There's two ways to localize, and the shadow, 6 o'clock, June, for the 6th month, June 6th, 6 o'clock, the shadow is going to the east. The sun is in the west, and I did the sun calc. You can do that. You can look it up, see what the actual azimuth is, and I think it's almost 100. It's pretty close to 275. What is that for? The 90 degrees. Anyway, so you can check that out. And again, so here's the main art by John Jude Polycar, light to dark, and here's the shadow, which is different from that shadow. And he didn't just make a mistake there. It's a shadow puzzle. So he's telling us right here which direction that we are to go from the drinking fountain. And here's a depiction. Basically, I don't think it's may or may not be off that corner, maybe more over this direction, like this. But it's in this area, and you're going to be measuring 3 feet from the corner, probably 5 feet from the pedal or the center, or maybe 5 from over here. But anyway, it's along the shadow line. Here's the azimuth, 279. That's pretty close to 275. That's 4 degrees off of an east-west line. The shadow line is what we're talking about. Real quick from previous art, we showed the triangle part. Step on the pedal. Here's the base, and that's why the grizzly bear's back is that shape, has a section of that. That's why the art is the way it is. This is the basin represented here, and here's our 3 feet triangle again, and the cane crosses right there. If you look at the art for this fairy, which was sophomoric jinx, that cane is drawn there for a reason. It's not just thrown into the art as well. That'd be pretty funny. And you have your triangle down here. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Guess what? That's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Gives you your X right there. I mean, how many times does he have to tell us? And this took me a long time. I was like, what the heck's going on with this guy, this cartoon? And then it occurred to me the shadow lines, and there's a shadow line here. Why draw a shadow line here and not down here? It's because this shadow line is important. And there's 1, 2, 3 for 3 from the corner of his mouth with what? A triangle? No way. And the top, if you look down upon the drinking fountain, that's the basin. Look from the side, there is our water fountain. Right there, drinking fountain. So this is localizing to that fountain. 3 feet along the shadow line. There we go. That's our little cartoon, same thing. And I don't know if that's a heart or not. Maybe it isn't. For New York, from the corner, 1, 2, 3, and we have a shadow line. So you can see basically what's going on with that. That's a big picture. And thanks to Eric Thomas and some others pointing out the SE or 5E, and that would be southeast corner, or maybe it's 5E for 5 east. But we do have an arrow pointing to the corner of this rectangle. There's 3 here, and we have a V with a dot in the middle of the V. So up here is New York, and that's as far as I'm going to go on that. Kind of gives it away, but and so these are combined for New York and San Francisco. In fact, the New York and San Francisco are both members of the 3, 4, 5 club. 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's a club. 3, 4, 5 club, and the X is right here. But you can see that you see it again over and over in art. There's the in your ear I was talking about, And it's not just the way the artist drew the ear. It's a 3, a 4, and a 5. The foot has a 3, a 4, and a 5. We talked about that in the large painting. We talked about the billiards. We didn't talk about this guy with triangles for eyes and his ribbons, 3, 4, 5. Count them up. We talked about the 3 and the 5 here. And the IBM card, we have a 3, punch out, and a 5 from there. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. The keys, look at the keys lit up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our triangle. Do we just ignore all this? Is all these coincidence? I think not. Getting to the spotter's tips. I'm sorry this is so long. I apologize, but it's a lot of information. There, you look at what's in the spotter's tips, and it talks about fewer housing starts. That's after the depression going on. Station wagons full of farmers heading for California. That's like the grapes of wrath. And after the depression, well, after the depression, the farmers went to California. A lot of them did. And that's what's depicted in the Coit Tower drawings. After this was done in like 33 and 34, and the depression was going on. And so this is a reference to the Coit Tower murals, and which is California, obviously. So you can kind of see where this stuff comes from now. And the history behind the Coit Tower paintings is pretty interesting. You can read that and see, post-depression and why the paintings were done and who did them. And more of that. You can see a policeman on a telephone. But you can, going back to the spotter's tips, men in top hats selling apples. Well, the big apple, it's New York. This part obviously is referring you to San Francisco, California puzzle. Big movie musicals featuring aquatic ballet. I believe that's New York. Lastly, I want to talk about boxcar riding folk singers. And it's this guy. Byron used the culture of the day to come up with a lot of these clues. Why is it this guy? Well, back when I was a kid, I remember the songs, but I didn't remember this guy. And it's fairly significant, but if you look at the art, you can see there's our train, another one of the train. These are his albums. You can see the train right up here. Guess what? This cartoon is San Francisco. So we have another San Francisco connection. And hat tip to Keith Holliday. He's pointed out some things, and there's some items on here, and we'll probably post that at some point, but I've already pointed out this guy with the 3 and the 5 and the loophole. Again, these things are connected. Spotter's tips are telling you where to look and what to look for, and they're using culture in these. Now, here's the guitar of our folk singer. This is on Passing Fancies. We go from ace to ace. Passing Fancies, they pass right by the drinking fountain of Coit Tower on their way up to the top, following the man of Alcatraz because he's got his prison stripes and he's free now. We use our imagination. We can figure these things out. These are fads. They're passing fancies. But this part right here is shaded. None of these people are shaded like these two. Well, why these two? 3 feet. X marks the spot from the ace. And here's our arc. We showed the arc before. You have an arc and an ace. And that is what's going on with that puzzle. Real quickly, I forgot about this. This has a shadow line. Comes all the way down here. Why go to the effort of putting that in there, and that in there, and that in there? Because you want that shadow line. What's on the end of the shadow line? An ace, a dot. Where's Nixon looking? Down here. Follow your nose, it says in the writings. Follow his nose 3 feet, 3 papers. Use your reading glasses to see that. It's pretty small, but it's there. It's an ace. You're going to take a step from the ace to the place the cask is kept. And that's under Alibi Elf, which is associated with Alcatraz, Birdman of Alcatraz. And it's loopholes. They're trying to get him out on loopholes. So that's the summary of the large cartoon, the small cartoon. And thank you for watching this video. Have a nice day.